7 signs you're a woman chosen by Allah for a higher purpose. When Allah chooses you for a higher purpose, the signs are all around you, but most people will never see them. They won't understand why you've walked through storms that would have destroyed someone else. They won't understand why you've been tested again and again, why you've been pulled away from certain people, why you've lost things you thought you needed. They won't understand because they don't see the training behind the scene. When Allah prepares a woman for something greater, He doesn't place her in comfort. He places her in situations that break the average person, so that she learns to rise when others stay down. You've been in moments where you felt like your whole world was collapsing, yet here you are. You didn't just survive, you kept your faith intact. That's not weakness, that's strength built from a higher source. The very trials you thought would destroy you were the tools Allah used to strip away the unnecessary, to burn out the weakness, to sharpen you into a weapon for good. And sometimes the people around you won't understand why you're different. They will think you're too serious, too intense, too committed to your values. They will tell you to relax, to compromise, to just to be like everyone else. But chosen women are never meant to be like everyone else. You're built for something they can't see. When you carry pain, you learn compassion, but you also learn resilience. Your scars are not a sign of damage. They are a sign of battles fought and survived. Every setback you faced, every betrayal you endured, every tear you cried was not wasted. Allah doesn't waste the pain of His chosen servants. He refines them, and in the process He teaches you to hold on to Him tighter than you hold on to anyone or anything else. That's why you've learned to let go of people who weren't meant for your journey. That's why you've walked away from places and situations that suffocated your soul. That's why you've chosen faith over comfort, even when it cost you. The woman chosen by Allah is not obsessed with the approval of the crowd. She knows the crowd is fake. One day they love you, the next day they turn against you. She doesn't let applause inflate her ego, and she doesn't let criticism crush her spirit. She moves with purpose, not permission. Her heart is anchored in the knowledge that her worth doesn't come from who supports her or who doubts her. It comes from the one who created her. That's why you keep going even when it feels like no one notices, even when it feels like no one is cheering. You keep going because you know your accountability is to Allah. Being chosen means you can't settle for mediocrity. It eats at you. You can't stay in the comfort zone because something deep inside knows you were made for more. While others waste time in distractions, you're working on yourself. You're building discipline. You're chasing excellence, not for the sake of ego, but because you know your mission demands the best version of you. The average person avoids pain. You understand that pain is part of growth. You know that every time you push through discomfort, every time you refuse to quit, you're becoming stronger for the mission ahead. Sometimes the training is lonely. You look around and realize that you've been separated from certain friendships, certain environments, certain habits. It will feel like loss at first, but it's actually protection. Allah is clearing your path from the things and people that could distract or corrupt your mission. When you're chosen, you can't afford to be entangled in meaningless drama, petty competition, or toxic circles. Your time is precious and your energy is sacred. Allah will teach you to guard them fiercely. The chosen woman fights for her faith like her life depends on it. Because it does. She knows that Iman is the most valuable thing she owns, and she treats it like treasure. She understands that the world can take away material things, but it cannot take away her connection to Allah unless she gives it up willingly. That's why she prays even when she's exhausted. That's why she guards her modesty, her integrity, her truth. That's why she speaks up when she needs to, and stays silent when silence protects her dignity. There will be days when you question why your path feels so much harder than others. You will see people who seem to have it easier, who don't have to fight the battles you fight, and you will be tempted to envy them. But what you may not realize is that ease is not always a blessing, and struggle is not always a curse. Allah's toughest tests are for His strongest servants. If your road has been steep, it's because the view you're climbing toward is higher than most will ever see. When you are chosen, you feel a constant pull towards something greater. You can't shake it, no matter how much you try to blend in or quiet it down. It's the restlessness in your heart when you know you're not living to your potential. It's the fire in your soul that ignites when you hear truth spoken, when you see injustice that needs to be challenged. when you remember the hereafter and realize this life is just a training ground. That pull is a sign. Don't ignore it. Your journey will demand sacrifice. You will have to let go of comfort, of certain dreams, of certain people, and every time you do, it will hurt. But each time you release something for the sake of Allah, He replaces it with something better. Maybe not instantly, but always perfectly timed. The chosen woman understands that delay is not denial. She trusts the process because she trusts the one who is in control of it. The woman chosen by Allah for a higher purpose doesn't wait for motivation to strike. She moves with discipline. She doesn't pray only when life gets hard. She prays consistently because she knows that's her lifeline. She doesn't give up when results are slow. She keeps building, keeps working, keeps showing up because she knows that victory is promised to those who persist. Her faith makes her relentless. You may not feel qualified. You may think of your flaws, your past mistakes, your shortcomings, and wonder why Allah would choose you. But history shows us that Allah never picked the arrogant, the self-satisfied, the ones who thought they were perfect. He chose those who were humble, those who had stumbled but got back up, those whose hearts were soft toward Him, even when the world was hard toward them. If you feel unworthy, that may be the very reason you are worthy in His sight. Every trial, every closed door, every lonely night is part of your molding. You are being prepared to walk into rooms you never imagined, to carry responsibilities heavier than most could bear, to inspire and uplift others just by being who you are. The strength you have now is not accidental. It is crafted by design. The patience you've developed is not coincidence. It is a divine gift. And the vision you carry in your heart is not just yours. It was placed there by the one who intends to see it fulfilled through you. When Allah chooses you, He doesn't just give you a mission. He shapes you into the kind of person who can carry it. And that shaping process is not easy. It will strip away your comfort, expose your weaknesses, and demand your perseverance. But when you emerge, you will be unshakable. You will walk through storms with calm because you've already survived hurricanes. You will carry light into darkness because you've known what it is to be in the dark yourself. You will lead, not because you wanted the position, but because you became the kind of person who can't help but lead by example. If you've ever wondered why your life feels like constant training, why you've been through battles you didn't ask for, why you can't just settle for ordinary, it's because you're not ordinary. You are being prepared for something bigger than you can see right now. And when the time comes, all the pain, all the effort, all the lonely nights, all the prayers you whispered when no one was watching, they will all make sense. You will realize you were never being broken. You were being built. Life didn't break you, it built you. Every trial, every setback, every moment you thought you couldn't take another step was actually a brick in the foundation of who you've become. At the time, it may have felt like the world was closing in on you, crushing you under the weight of problems too heavy for your shoulders. You might have cried in silence, felt the sting of betrayal, or experienced loss that carved deep into your heart. But with each blow, instead of shattering into pieces, you adapted. You learned to bend without breaking, to stand even when your knees trembled, to breathe through storms that tried to suffocate you. Life has a way of testing those who are destined for more, not to destroy them, but to strip away illusions and force them to grow into their true selves. In the moment, the pain didn't feel like growth. It felt raw, unbearable, unfair. But now, when you look back, you see that the situations that hurt you the most are the same ones that shaped your strength. Every time you were knocked down, you discovered a deeper level of resilience within yourself. You began to see that your worth was not defined by circumstances, that your identity could not be erased by someone else's rejection, that your value wasn't dependent on who stayed or who left. Life's blows didn't make you weaker. They forged a version of you that can endure what others would collapse under. The lessons weren't easy. They came through heartbreak, through sleepless nights, through standing in rooms where you felt completely alone. They came when you had to rebuild from scratch, when you had to silence the voice in your head that told you to quit, when you had to trust Allah's plan even though you couldn't see the road ahead. These moments didn't just test your patience, they strengthened your faith. They taught you that when all else fails, when every support system crumbles, there is still one who will never abandon you. And in leaning on Him, you found a strength that no amount of worldly success could give. The truth is, the very situations you thought would break you became the training ground for your destiny. They taught you discipline when you wanted to procrastinate, courage when fear whispered in your ear, and determination when giving up seemed easier. You learned to carry yourself with dignity, even when the world tried to strip it from you. You learned to walk away from what was poisonous to your soul, even when it was familiar and comfortable. You learned that peace isn't found in avoiding challenges, but in facing them with the right heart. Now you move differently. You no longer panic when storms roll in, because you've weathered worse and survived. You no longer fear losing things, because you've already lost and rebuilt stronger. You no longer question your ability to endure, because you know you've been through the fire and came out sharper, wiser, and unshakable. You carry wounds like weapons. The pain you've lived through isn't just a memory. It's a part of you, sharpened and refined into strength. What once bled now burns with purpose. Every scar is a testament to survival, a mark that you've been to places others wouldn't dare step into and still found your way out. Those wounds didn't stay open. They healed into armor. They became lessons that no book, no lecture, no easy life could have ever taught you. You've been through enough to understand that pain isn't always the enemy. It's the forge where resilience is shaped. When people look at you now, they may see confidence, self-control, or calm, but what they don't see is the battle it took to get here. They don't see the nights you stayed awake replaying conversations, the mornings you dragged yourself out of bed when your heart felt heavy, the moments you stood in silence holding back words that would have destroyed bridges. You learned restraint from betrayal. You learned caution from disappointment. You learned patience from situations that forced you to wait when every part of you wanted to run. The wounds you carry are not weaknesses. They are reminders of what you've overcome and what you refuse to go back to. There was a time you might have seen those wounds as flaws, as damage, as proof you were broken. But now you realize they are proof that you're still here. They've taught you how to read people beyond their words, how to sense danger before it arrives, how to protect your heart without hardening it completely. Every cut you endured sharpened your discernment. Every heartbreak strengthened your ability to stand alone if needed. Every loss reminded you to hold on loosely to the things of this world. You've learned to turn pain into fuel. When others told you that you couldn't, you remembered the times you got back up when no one thought you would. When fear tried to creep in, you reminded yourself that you've already survived worse. When doubt whispered in your ear, you countered it with the memory of how far you've come. Your wounds have become your proof that you can handle the fire and walk through it without losing yourself. Now, when life tests you again, you don't crumble at the first sign of struggle. You know how to fight. You know how to stand in the middle of chaos and keep your composure. You know how to let pain push you forward instead of holding you back. You carry your wounds not as a sign of weakness, but as a badge of honor, a silent declaration that you've been tested and found unbreakable. They are the quiet weapons you draw strength from, the invisible blades that cut through fear, doubt, and anything that dares to stop you from walking the path you were meant to walk. Discomfort is your training ground. It's where you're stripped of the illusions that life should be easy, where your limits are tested and your character is refined. It's the place where the soft parts of you are toughened, where your excuses are exposed, and where your resilience is built brick by brick. Most people run from discomfort because it feels unnatural, it feels unsafe, it feels like failure. But you've learned that it's the only environment where real growth happens. Comfort may feel good, but it never changes you. Discomfort, on the other hand, forces you to face the parts of yourself you would rather ignore, and it demands that you either rise to the challenge or remain stuck where you are. When you're in discomfort, everything feels magnified. Your doubts, your fears, your insecurities. But that's the point. It's there to reveal what's still holding you back, so you can deal with it. The long nights where you have to keep working when your body wants to quit. The moments where you have to stand your ground in the face of opposition. The seasons when nothing is going according to plan. These are not punishments. They are training sessions designed to build your endurance. They are mental and spiritual weightlifting, adding strength to parts of you that comfort would leave weak. Every great transformation comes with a period of intense discomfort. You don't develop patience without situations that make you wait. You don't develop courage without moments that scare you. You don't develop faith without seasons where you can't see the outcome. Discomfort forces you to lean on Allah more, to trust His wisdom when your own understanding fails. It strips away the false sense of control you think you have and teaches you to move forward even when you don't have all the answers. In the training ground of discomfort, small victories matter. You learn to appreciate the progress you make, even if it's just one step forward. You discover that strength isn't built overnight, but through consistent resistance, day after day. You realize that every time you choose to stay in the challenge rather than escape it, you are developing a level of discipline that will carry you through the bigger battles ahead. You've also learned that discomfort is not permanent. It's a season, a stage, a necessary part of the journey. The difficulty you face today will eventually become the strength you carry tomorrow. When the pain subsides, you'll look back and see that what felt unbearable was actually molding you into someone more capable, more determined, more unshakable. That's why you no longer see discomfort as the enemy. You see it as the arena where the version of you that Allah intended is being forged, refined, prepared for the mission only you can fulfill. You're immune to applause and criticism. You've reached a point where neither praise nor insult has the power to control your direction. You've learned that if you allow applause to inflate your ego, the absence of it will deflate your spirit. And if you let criticism crush you, you'll be living at the mercy of people's opinions instead of the purpose Allah put in your heart. You've trained yourself to detach from both because you understand that your mission doesn't depend on public approval. Applause is temporary, criticism is inevitable, but your calling is eternal. There was a time when you sought validation, when the compliments made you feel unstoppable and the negative words pierced deeper than you wanted to admit. But life and the tests you faced taught you that both are dangerous if they dictate your worth. Praise can make you complacent, convincing you that you've already arrived. Criticism can paralyze you, convincing you that you're not good enough to even try. Now you've stepped into a different mindset. You take feedback for what it's worth, you measure it against truth, and you move forward without being chained to it. You've seen how unpredictable people can be. The same crowd that cheers you today can turn against you tomorrow. The same people who once supported you can suddenly distance themselves when you make a choice they don't understand. You no longer put your stability in something so unstable. Your eyes are fixed on a higher standard, one that doesn't shift with emotions or trends. You've anchored your identity in what Allah sees in you, not in what people say about you. Being immune doesn't mean you're arrogant or that you ignore everything people say. It means you've built a filter strong enough to separate truth from noise. If someone offers constructive advice, you accept it with humility. If someone throws baseless judgment, you let it slide off without letting it poison your focus. You've realized that both praise and criticism are fleeting, but the work you're doing and the intention behind it will outlast both. This detachment has given you freedom. Freedom to take risks without fear of looking foolish. Freedom to pursue goals without needing constant approval. Freedom to make decisions based on what's right rather than what's popular. It allows you to operate in a space where you are consistent no matter the external reaction. You are steady when the crowd cheers, and you are steady when the crowd is silent. You've also noticed that when you stop chasing applause, your work becomes purer. You're not doing it to impress. You're doing it because it matters. And when you stop fearing criticism, you start moving with a confidence that isn't fragile. Your worth is not on the auction block of public opinion. Your direction is not dictated by claps or boos. You've built an inner compass that points toward the mission Allah placed in you, and nothing anyone says can turn it off course. You refuse to settle for average. There is something inside you that rejects mediocrity, that refuses to accept a life of just existing when you were created to live with purpose. Average is safe, predictable, and comfortable, but it's also limiting, and you've learned that the comfort of average comes at the cost of your potential. You can't sit still knowing you have more in you, knowing you're capable of becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more impactful. That inner restlessness is not dissatisfaction for the sake of complaining. It's the fire that pushes you to keep striving when others have stopped. You've seen what happens to people who choose average. They settle into routines that no longer challenge them. They silence their dreams in exchange for stability, and they slowly let life dictate their path instead of shaping it themselves. That's not the life you want. You'd rather fail chasing something great than succeed at something that means nothing. You understand that greatness doesn't come by accident. It comes through effort, sacrifice, and a refusal to quit when the road gets hard. Your refusal to settle means you're willing to do what most people won't. You'll put in the extra hours when everyone else is resting. You'll embrace challenges instead of avoiding them. You'll face fear head-on because you know that fear is often the doorway to growth. You've learned to live with discipline, to hold yourself accountable, and to push past the moment when your mind tells you it's enough. That's where the real breakthroughs happen. Not in the comfortable beginnings, but in the uncomfortable extra mile. You don't compare yourself to others to determine what's possible for you. You've stopped using the average standard as your measurement. Instead, you've set your own bar, and it's higher than anything the world expects from you. You don't just want to meet expectations, you want to surpass them. And this isn't about ego, it's about honoring the gifts and opportunities Allah has given you. To settle for average would be to waste what He placed inside you. You've also accepted that the path to extraordinary is lonely at times. Not everyone will understand your drive. Some will tell you to slow down, to be satisfied with what you have, to stop chasing too much. But you know they're speaking from their own limitations, not yours. You're not willing to shrink your vision to fit someone else's comfort zone. You'd rather walk alone toward your goal than stand still in a crowd going nowhere. Every day you wake up, you remind yourself that time is not promised and life is too short to live at half capacity. You don't know how many more chances you'll get to pursue your purpose, so you're not wasting any of them. You keep showing up, pushing harder, and refusing to let a good enough be the ceiling on what you can achieve. For you, average is not an option. It's a boundary you'll never accept. You fight for your faith like your life depends on it, because it does. You understand that faith is not just a belief you carry in your mind, it's the oxygen for your soul. Without it, everything else loses meaning. You've learned through trials that the world can strip you of money, health, relationships, and comfort, but the most dangerous loss is the loss of iman. That's why you guard it fiercely, while you protect it from anything that might chip away at it, while you refuse to hand it over to convenience, compromise, or fear. You've been in moments where holding onto your faith cost you something, maybe friendships, opportunities, or the approval of people you cared about. But you chose to keep it because you know that Allah's pleasure is worth infinitely more than the acceptance of the world. Every time you faced a test that demanded you choose between what is right and what is easy, you stood your ground. It wasn't always comfortable. Sometimes it left you standing alone. Sometimes it brought criticism, misunderstanding, or even hostility. But you learned that losing people is nothing compared to losing the connection between you and Allah. Fighting for your faith doesn't just happen in big public battles. It happens in the quiet moments too. It's in waking up for Fajr when your body wants to stay in bed. It's in lowering your gaze when no one would know if you didn't. It's in speaking truth when it would be easier to stay silent. It's in choosing patience over revenge, forgiveness over bitterness, and obedience over temptation. These are the daily battles that shape the strength of your faith. You also know that faith is not a one-time achievement. It's something that has to be nurtured, protected, and renewed. You feed it through prayer, through Quran, through remembering Allah in your heart and on your tongue. You guard it by avoiding what harms it, whether that's toxic influences, harmful habits, or environments that make disobedience easy. You've realized that Iman is like a flame. If you neglect it, it fades. If you protect and feed it, it grows bright enough to light your path even in the darkest times. There are moments when your faith is tested to its limit, when you feel like you're holding on by a thread. But even in those moments, you choose to hold on. You remember the promises of Allah, the certainty of the hereafter, the reality that every sacrifice made for Him is returned in ways far greater than what was given up. This is why you fight so hard, because you know faith is not just about living well in this life, it's about where you'll stand in the next. You've made a decision that nothing will come between you and Allah, and that decision shapes how you move, speak, and live every single day.